Yeah, welcome to the Weege Show, or should I call it nowadays, Porch Talk. Sun rising in the East edition. It is absolutely in my face right now. Beautiful lighting. This is professional right here. Now, full disclosure, I am no longer on pain meds. I don't know what's going on. I'm 3 days out of the surgery. I'm going to... do we have receipts for this? Do we have receipts? Did I really get ACL surgery done? I mean, I've still got this thing on. Lord knows I had to pay for that. But otherwise, I didn't even need pain meds last night, so I'm wondering if they didn't perform the surgery, and for the amount of money I spent, yes, you would think I'd rather not be in pain, but, you know, I want to get the full kit. I want, like, the buffet. I want the full experience. Now, full disclosure is a real part of this show because I'm not on pain meds. I have full mental clarity, and I swear I heard Eli Tomac actually reveal something interesting in a press conference after he won the title. So now we know you can be on heavy like oxycodone, and that'll make you say crazy things like Ryan Dungey's coming out of retirement. Is that really true? Also, if you win a Supercross title, it'll make you say crazy things, because Eli Tomac revealed last night that he was nervous at Atlanta and Foxborough because he had suffered what? A knee injury. Yes, a knee injury. I don't believe we've ever heard Tomac mention that he has an injury, but it didn't take long for us to run through the mental Rolodex and find out where that might have happened. Remember a heat race in Atlanta? Now, credit to Tomac. He caught and passed Jason Anderson. This is just a heat race. He had a big points lead. He didn't have to battle Anderson. He did. You know Anderson's going to come back at you, and that's what Anderson did. Credit to him. He battled back. He repassed Tomac. Tomac tried to get Anderson back in the same corner a lap later, and he really kind of folded his knee. It's not a good picture there. We assumed Tomac was fine after that because he raced the main event, and he was okay, but it wasn't the best main event for him. But we assumed he was in championship conservation mode. And, you know, it's odd now that I think about it. The first lap or two of the Atlanta main was very, very bad, and he said he was just lousy. He was probably testing the knee after the heat race in those first two laps. He looked very slow there. And then Anderson comes in on the left leg, the same knee that we saw fold in Atlanta and Foxborough, and then Eli simply started sliding back through the field, which again, we thought was championship conservation mode. Eli actually got fined because he did not stop to talk to the TV crew. Probably had a lot of things running through his mind at that point with the knee injury. So now it all seems pretty crystal clear, which is not what we normally get clarity with Eli Tomac. Why does this matter so much? Well, we'll get into it on the Weege Show, brought to you by Racetech and their gold valves. Now, you know the gold valves will make your suspension plusher, better bottoming resistance, more traction, and made and engineered in the USA, so no supply chain issues. But also, I want to shout out Racetech for backing the Justin Brayton shootout at Riverside Raceway in Iowa. That's coming up the weekend after Salt Lake City Supercross, so 2 weeks from now. If you're anywhere in the Midwest, I advise the road trip. You get to hang out with Justin Brayton. I heard Damon Bradshaw is going to be there. I was supposed to be there myself, but doctor's not going to let me fly in this condition. But I believe Davey Coombs is going to go, and that should be an epic bench race session between Brayton and Coombs and Damon and whoever else shows up. I know Brayton was talking to Chad Reed and other people like that. So should be a very, very fun race, a fun hangout, a great racetrack. Have a good time with the family. Go check out the Justin Brayton shootout in Iowa at Riverside Raceway, brought to you by Racetech. So why does this knee injury thing matter so much? Well, I know that you're going to immediately say, oh, does this mean he's not going to race Lucas Oil Pro Motocross? We cannot talk about that. There's a long-standing tradition. If you ask the Supercross champion the day or night he clinches the title about outdoors, he's going to say he doesn't care about outdoors. Like one time, Anderson literally said, if I win this Supercross title, I don't give an SHIT about outdoors. And I don't think he actually doesn't give an SHIT about outdoors. I think he's just saying, dude, I just won the most pressure-packed, amazing thing in my life. Do not ask me about next month's thing. Let me soak this in. And Cooper Webb pretty much did the same back in 2019. I'm not going to ask Eli about outdoors right now. Let him celebrate with his team because it's a monumental accomplishment. But the reason I'm talking about the full disclosure of the knee injury is because the fact that Tomac usually doesn't disclose anything is why we got this wrong. We did. No, I'm sure there were a couple people came at me on Twitter and showed me their timelines. Denny Stevenson, former 125 East Supercross champion, said on October 21st he predicted that Eli Tomac would win the title on the Yamaha this year. And apparently James Stewart did it in his Bubba's World podcast. But those are just bold claims. I do not feel that in May, when we heard that Tomac was switching to Yamaha, we heard all these people say, oh, it's on, oh, it's over, Tomac's going to dominate. That was not the predominant feel. And we know what that feels like. We know, for example, when we heard that Ken Roxon was going to Honda in 2017, the fear that struck in everyone else, and everyone knew that Kenny was going to be so good. I feel like this one was more of a raised eyebrow situation because Yamaha's 450 had not had much success in Supercross, so that's one thing. But second of all, because Tomac never complains about his bike, he never talks about settings, he never talks about bike setup. You don't hear him say that I'm just searching for comfort. He talks about that less than any other rider. So apparently he was searching for setup on the Kawasaki and searching for comfort, and we never knew it because Eli doesn't talk about that stuff. So to us, all the data we had was Cowie had a long, successful run with a lot of riders, so their bike and their team must be awesome. And Tomac himself had a long, successful run with that team. So how could he possibly upgrade by leaving Kawasaki, by leaving the bike that he won the 2020 Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship on? How could he possibly upgrade? Well, apparently behind the scenes, there were struggles probably throughout the outdoors in 2020 and throughout the 2021 season. But Eli never mentioned the words settings or setup or comfort or testing the motorcycle basically one time. So we had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. Now, as a journalist, I'd love to have a little bit more full disclosure from Eli Tomac, but there's one other thing that's happening right now, and that is Eli just became the oldest Supercross champion ever at 29. By the way, he's the first dad to ever win the Supercross title. He accomplished that 2 years ago. This longevity for Eli Tomac, I've talked a lot about how his dad, John, purposely kept Eli off the motorcycle when he was younger so burnout wouldn't set in, and didn't race too much when he was younger so burnout wouldn't set in. Obviously, that is a huge factor. But I also think the fact that Eli is so quiet and doesn't get into the drama, he doesn't really have rivalries with anybody. You don't hear back and forth between him. He doesn't talk any trash. He doesn't disclose anything. He doesn't put any pressure on himself. All he does is does his work during the week, shows up for work, goes home, keeps his mouth shut. I think the amount of drama and nerves that he's able to reduce from racing at the highest level has probably also played a factor with his longevity, because now we're going to be questioning him on this knee thing, and he's going to be thinking about it all the time. These are the little mental things that Eli has not had to put up with through the years because he doesn't talk about anything. Yes, it meant that we were wrong, that we didn't know that there was a problem with the Kawasaki team. And by the way, that Kawasaki thing is just specific to Tomac, because Anderson is just as much improved this year, switching to Cowie with now 6 wins. It has been a phenomenal year for him. I think the final story, the Book of Eli, as the term people like to use, would be, I don't think Kawasaki is as rigid as the Tomacs say. They're just not as flexible as the Tomacs need. And for Anderson and most other riders who've passed through those doors, including Tomac himself in previous years, Kawasaki definitely knows what they're doing. It's been a great year for Anderson, now winning 3 in a row. And I want to credit him here. He could have given up when he was way back in points in Detroit, but he did not. He kept battling for it. And in Atlanta, he was ready to battle Eli in a heat race, and he probably did not realize that making a pass, Tomac caught him. Anderson could have let him go, but he passed him back. And that came this close to leading to a battle that led to an injury, that led to Tomac being out of the series, that could have actually allowed Anderson to dig this title out. You never give up. Those guys did not this year. They didn't give up in their careers either. They kept searching for the next thing, and that made it that much more exciting for us this year to have 2 well-known, well-established stars in the game at their peak. And it's also changed the paradigm of what I was thinking, because I didn't know that Kawasaki was the problem last year. I just thought Eli was getting older. And usually the first thing to go is being good every single weekend. You could still win the occasional race here and there, and that's what Eli did in 2021. So I mistakenly thought that's the Eli Tomac that we were in for the next couple of years. But unlike Lance Armstrong's book, in this case it was about the bike. Also about his suspension man over there, Ricky Gilmore, who Tomac had worked with earlier in his career and is now at Star Racing. But it was about the bike. It was about the setup. We just didn't know. So I appreciate the full disclosure to Eli Tomac, and most importantly, huge congratulations to him. He could have packed it in. He could have given up. He could have just taken a big salary at Cowie. He could have retired. And Yamaha could have given up as well. They changed. They switched over to Star Racing. It was a bit of a risk to move the 250 team to the 450 class, and look how it has paid off. They had won 2 450 races over the last, 8 years. And just like that, they are Monster Energy AMA Supercross champions. So congrats to Star, who Bobby Regan himself single-handedly holding off the Austrian assault on this sport, bringing Yamaha to the forefront now in the 450 class, and everyone that he has hired over there at Star Racing. KTM takeover in so many classes and so many years and so many different forms of motorcycle racing, but Yamaha and Bobby Regan and his Star Racing team single-handedly holding that off. So congrats to them, but most importantly to Eli and the Tomac family for digging it out, digging and staying in there and winning this Supercross title again when most people would not have predicted that it was going to happen. Full disclosure, you've got to be happy for the guy. As for the future with the injury, Don't ask about that. We'll just let them celebrate.